Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie Jessica.
So today we're going to give you Woman on the Run, or Heroine on the Run. So this is not that kind of run. I don't want to do that.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is. But this is, in this video, we've got heroines who are running from someone or something or fleeing. This is a trope that I really enjoy.
Wait, this isn't about track stars?
No, this is not about track stars.
I might have the wrong books for them.
Oh, darn.
Just kidding.
Have you read lots of books like this?
Track star books?
What am I going to do with you?
Waking Olivia is the only track book I can think of off the top of my head.
I'm not talking about track stars. I enjoy this trope. This trope is hard to find. Do you enjoy this trope when you come across it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a fun, unique trope. So we have 10, so we're going to try that. But before we do that, what are we going to tell them?
Oh, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We give away free books on our channel, so you definitely want to hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram for an extra entry. You can find all of our information linked below. Let's start talking books.
Let's start talking books. Okay. So
ready?
Woman on the Run. Yeah. So I think it's important, and I think within mine, they're not always running from the hero. They're typically running from somebody else. I think I have one where they're running from the hero. So, yeah.
Mine are not running from the hero.
I have one where they're running from the hero. Okay. Yeah. And I think it's also safe to say the Run Posey Run is not on here because I've talked about that so many times by Kate C. Wells. So if you want to know about that one, it is in other videos, and we can talk about it. But it is it's a woman on the run. But yeah.
One of mine, she kind of is hiding from him, but from different reasons.
Okay.
So I'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
All right.
Okay. Ready?
Ready.
Okay, so the first book I have for you is called Hush, Darling, and this is by Avery Kingston. So this is about Gia and Tanner. So Gia is the wife to a mafia guy in New York, and he is not nice to her. He's very abusive to her, and he's very cruel to her, and she has tried, he wants a baby, and she refuses, like she's gone behind his back to make sure that she doesn't get pregnant. And one of her close friends is an OBGYN, and something happens, and all these fail safes she's put into effect here fail, and she ends up pregnant. And so when that happens, her friend, who is the doctor, helps her escape, because she's like, I can't bring a child into this, but I also can't abort my baby. Like I want to keep it, and so she decides to go on the run. Her friend gets her a vial of her own blood, and she fakes her death, and she goes on the run. And along the way, she's crosses over into Canada, and she gets to this little town, and there's a snowstorm, and she crashes the car, and she sees a little cabin in the distance, and she crashed the car, and she needs a place to go, or somehow she ends up in a little cabin. It's been a little over a year since I read this. She ends up in the cabin, and there's a local guy who owns all these cabins as their rentals, and that is where we meet Tanner. Tanner is deaf. He was not born deaf, but he lost his hearing over time, and that is who our hero is. And he and her have this instant connection. It's not instant love, but it is instant connection. And she even addresses that. She's like, I'm pregnant with somebody else's baby, and whatever. She's very skittish. He can tell something's not right. I loved their connection. So she's on the run from her husband, and he's still out there, but they're kind of snowed in at this point. And he has her come stay in his cabin to keep her warm. She's in her own for a while, and then kind of back and forth. So I did like this one quite a bit. I like that.
Damn you, Jessica.
What?
Damn you. I have this book on my list for communication barrier.
Oh, well, we're not talking about this one for communication barrier. You haven't read it yet, have you?
No.
Oh,
I created this insane reading plan for the next month to make sure I cover all the books that we need for upcoming videos. And this is one of my communication barrier ones. So now I might as well just throw my whole plan away.
yeah. You should maybe check with me on what I have for communication barrier, considering that's one of my top tropes. We're going to have to talk a little bit more. See, guys, this is what happens when we plan our whole year out for the year.
I'm excited though, because then
You
I
need to read
made
it.
plans that
Mandy's the
apparently
planner.
mean nothing.
Mandy's the planner. You can still read the book. The book is good. Go read the book. But I do like it.
I have to think about it now.
Okay. Well,
as
now
you started talking about it, I was like, wait, this sounds really familiar. I know I have it on my list. And then you were talking about the start of the book, and I'm like, why did I put this on my list for books I need to read for upcoming videos? And then you said that, and I'm like, that's why. That's what it was there for.
Okay.
All right.
So
well,
tell me about your first woman on the run.
now that you've taken the wind out of my sail. My first book is Until I Get You, Jessica, by Claire Contras. So this is about Lachlan and Lila. Lachlan is a hockey god, but there's very little on-page hockey in this book. It's basically so that we know he's really famous and easily recognizable. He meets Lila at a party. Lila's there very hesitantly. She is not like the girl that dresses up for these things. In fact, she has a stalker, a very dangerous stalker, and we learn throughout the book just how dangerous he is. And so she is doing everything she can to like not stand out, but yet she still catches Lachlan's attention, and she decides that the connection between the two of them is worth it. And so she kind of goes for it with him. And then some things happen, and she realizes that she has to go on the run. She has to go into hiding. She can't let Lachlan know where she is. She needs to let him go live his hockey dreams, and she has to get away from this stalker. So she goes into hiding. Lachlan goes off, and 3 years later, the book says he's back for revenge. I don't know that I really see the revenge so much from him, but now she has to deal with the fact that she still has this stalker, and now Lachlan wants her and has found her.
And he's a little bitter that she took off, and so he kind of is a dick at first, but there's no back for revenge. I don't know that that's a good way to describe that.
No, but excellent book.
It's a very good book. Yes, I agree. So, okay, so then the next book that I have is a Lauren Beal book. So again, guys, it's going to be dark. It's Lauren Beal. This is the second book that she has in her hitchhiking series. So this is the Along for the Ride. These are all standalones. So this is an MFM, and this is about our heroine, Leanna, I think is her name. It's hard to say. Leana. Leanna. And Gentry and Carson, Gentry and Carson, who are brothers. And Leanna, it comes to the big city, and when she's young, she's a runaway from home. She's run away from a bad home life, and she meets this guy who is a drug dealer, and he gets her hooked on drugs, and she becomes his girl. And he abuses her, and he treats her very poorly, and he gets her hooked. And she decides that she doesn't want that life anymore, and so she detoxes herself. And when he finds out, he gets her, he shoots her up again, and she manages to run and escape him, but she's high as a kite at this point. And she gets in a vehicle and she flees, which probably not a smart thing to do when you're high, but just saying. But she gets down the road, and as she pulls over, there's these guys standing on the side of the road, and that is Gentry and Carson. Now, these guys are hired assassins, and they're just finished doing their assassin business, and their vehicle they're having issues. They're hitchhiking at this point. Not necessarily hitchhiking, but they're on the side of the road. She pulls over because she's sick. She's detoxing again, and she's just a mess. And she's running from this guy who's this big drug guy, and things are a mess. And they take her at gunpoint, and they take her across the country with them, and they're not nice to her either. She's detoxing the whole time. Part of it, she doesn't even care. She's like, I'm dying, leave me alone. But they have hits they have to do along the way. And there's still that question of where is this boyfriend and when is he going to come back into play? And these guys are unhinged. One's a psychopath and one's a sociopath. So it sounds like a good time to me. So in a book, not in real life, in a book. But yeah, I liked this one. I think this is my favorite out of all three. Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So my next book is Beautifully Broken Life by Katherine Cowles. This is number 2 in the Sutter Lake series. They can be read as standalones, but I find that sometimes the books are a little more enjoyable if you can read in order, but totally okay to read by itself. So this is about Tessa and Liam. Tessa is in an extremely abusive relationship, with a very high profile man who kind of runs the city, everybody's in his pocket type thing. And so she takes a very long time to plan an elaborate escape because she like literally is being held kind of prisoner. Like if she goes somewhere, his driver takes her. Like every single moment of her life is controlled by him. So she is able to sneak out of his like sneak away from the guy who's supposed to be watching her, and she goes on the run, and she ends up in Sutter Lake, and she meets Liam. And she has been there for, we see her in the first book. She's been in this place for a little while. She keeps to herself, very low profile. She's very jumpy. They all know something has happened, but she's never really shared anything. And Liam is just really drawn to her and really tries hard to pursue a friendship, and beyond with her, but she's very closed off towards him because Liam is a very famous rock star, and she knows as if you're in hiding from somebody, how can you be in a relationship with somebody who's extremely famous? You're going to get photographed with them. So it kind of makes their relationship impossible, but yet somehow we have to make this work, right?
Yeah, that was a good
I
one too.
mean, love conquers all.
So we're told.
Yes. Again, be very careful if you're in Katherine Cowles' town and you're trying to fall in love.
Yeah.
You've been warned.
She's got a thing against it, apparently. Okay. So my next book is an MC, and that is Bexley's Biker by Misty Walker. This is the 3rd book in her Royal Bastards Reno series. You can read this as a standalone, and you're not going to be missing anything if you do. So there you go. So this is about Bexley and Con. His name is Wesley or Wes, but his road name is Con. And when the book starts out, Bexley is the lawyer for the bikers, and Con is in jail, because that happens. And he is the VP of the club, and she's going to try and get him off. There was something that happened at the end of the first book. It's kind of explained at the beginning of this book, so you don't necessarily need to know what's going on there. And or second book, whatever. There's something that happens. He gets put in jail. So she's his lawyer. She's going to try and get him off. But what they've come to realize is, we realize early on, these two hate each other. They're back and forth at each other's throats constantly. But she's running from her ex-husband. And we find that out pretty early on. And she did something. She stole something from him. She set herself up in a new life. And now that ex-husband is back, and he is sending messages, and then certain things happen. And so not only is she trying to get Con, freed of these charges, but she wants to run again. And Con's like, you're not running. I'm going to take care of you. So you've got the danger of the man being back, and he's doing things and he's setting things up. And then you've also got her trying to keep him out of prison. So it was a good one too. I like Misty Walker's MCs. She writes a good MC. Okay. All right. So what's your next book?
Okay. My next book is Wait for You by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Let me switch myself over. All right. So this is about Avery. Avery moves clear across the country to go to college because something happened. It's referred to kind of as a fateful night. that happens, and her parents are not concerned about it. They're more concerned about how it looks to their country club friends. So she really kind of feels alone in what's going on. So she moves clear across the country to go to college to try and get away from all of this. The reason she is on the run is it's not so much, so she's moved across the country to get away from this, but she is still getting threatening phone calls and harassing emails about whatever happened. Whoops. I don't know. And she doesn't know who is behind this. And so it's causing her a lot of stress and anxiety because they're basically saying, like, you can't run from us type thing. We're coming for you type situation. So she meets Cam. Cam is described as being, you know, this like hot guy. He's got all the friends, kind of like, you know, if we were to describe like the popular guy in college, it would probably be Cam. And so Cameron and her start off as friends, and he's just super persistent, but yet in a very patient and understanding way with her because she does not want a relationship. And so they basically are in a relationship without like the relationship, like, what am I trying to say? Without like being in a relationship, they're in a relationship. Like they go to dinner together, they spend most of their nights together. It's very, very sweet. And then he finds out that she's getting these messages. And that's where the story really kind of picks up at that point. It's a really good, really enjoyed it. A little bit different take of being on the run, but definitely she is on the run.
Okay. So in my next book, she's on the run from the hero. So this is actually a duet, and it's by Natasha and I and Avery. And so this is their ties. It's the ties that bind duet, but it's mine and then his is the second book. And so this is about Katharine and Lev, and they meet at a nightclub. Kat's younger, and she has been a foster child, and now she's out doing her own thing, and she lives with roommates, or maybe she's on her own. It's been a while since I read it. Anyhow, Bestie takes her to a nightclub, and that's where she meets Lev. Someone slips something into her drink. She doesn't realize it, and Lev is there. He finds her, takes her up to his apartment, which is above the nightclub, takes care of her that night, and then takes her home. Nothing happens at that point other than him just realizing who she is. They meet up. They end up running into each other again. That's when the deed is done, and they, you know, spend some time together. And then, you know, she's a little bit on the fascinated side with him. Her best friend is telling her to stay away from him. He's trouble. There's things that she doesn't understand that are going on in this world because her dad is a businessman who is involved in the mafia, and Lev is in the mafia, even though she doesn't come out and tell her that. One day she's over at her best friend's house, and her best friend tells her, you need to go now. And that's because the mafia guys are coming in and they kill her and her family. And when that happens, Kat goes on the run, and she goes on the run for years. Lev goes looking for her for years because she takes something extremely valuable with her. She actually takes two things extremely valuable with her, one for the mob and one for Lev, even though she doesn't realize she's leaving with it. And then he finds her like 5 or 6 years later. She's teaching in this really small town, and she has a couple of things, one he was expecting and one he wasn't. And he comes back looking for her. So it's a great little duet. It was my first Natasha and I and Avery books. I liked it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Ready for my next one?
So ready.
Okay. My next one is River Wild by Samantha Toll. This is about Carrie and River. Carrie is in a very abusive marriage, and her husband is a cop. And when she tried to get help, nobody cared, basically. And so she feels very alone and very trapped. And then she finds out she is pregnant and she is not going to have this baby with him. She's not going to raise a child in this environment. So she finally has the motive and the courage to get out of there. And she knows she has to act fast before he finds out. So she goes on the run. She goes somewhere that she feels that he will not look for her, which is a small town in Texas. And she ends up renting a home next to River. River is grumpier than grumpy. He's actually just he's a standoffish jerk, really, to start with. And eventually he kind of starts to warm up to her. But Carrie always has this threat of the ex-husband, who's actually still going to be her husband because she can't exactly divorce him because she's in hiding, is going to come back and ruin her life, basically. And so she's always a little bit fearful of that. But that doesn't stop her from starting to kind of fall for River. It is incredibly good because River is not a standoffish jerk just because he is. Like, he has a lot of trauma and baggage he's carrying with him. And so we kind of see how two very broken people can eventually come together and heal each other. It's really, really good. So lots of dark elements in this book, but also a very sweet, loving story. Eventually.
Eventually. They'll get there. Don't worry. They'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. So my book has some triggers too. This is my last one. So make sure you check the triggers. And that is Finn by BJ Alpha. This is the third book in her Secrets and Lies series. You can read these as standalones. So this is about Finn and Angel. So 9 years prior, Finn and Angel have been together since they were young. They were always together. They joined at the hip. They had been dating since they were really young. And then Finn goes off into the army and he comes home and Angel's not there. And they'd had a great relationship. He doesn't know what happened to her or where she went. So he starts getting these phone calls now. And they're from a hospital telling him that he is the next of kin listed for a Chelsea who's been in a car accident. And at first he thinks it's a accident, like it's a fake call. And he hangs up on them. And he gets the call multiple times. And then he finally decides to answer the call and talk to them. And then he decides to go to the hospital, which is like a state away, and find out what the heck is going on. When he gets there, Angel is the person in bed going by the name of Chelsea. And she's completely changed her looks. Now she has tattoos. She has piercings. Her white blonde hair is red. And he's like, what is going on? And she is trying to get out of the hospital and get away. And he can tell she is on the run. She is running from something. And he doesn't give a crap. He's found her. He's going to keep her. That's what I like about all these guys in this series. Once they find their woman, they don't let them get away again. Ever. It's the whole club them over the head and keep them thing. But he realizes that she's on the run from something. And he's going to figure it out. And he's going to protect her from it. But he's going to keep her too. And when I tell you guys breeding, this one, it's like the ultimate breeding book.
You and your breeding.
Hey, it's a kink.
It's
and
a
I
real
am
problem.
not ashamed of it.
It's surprising you only have 3 children.
That's because my body wouldn't let me have more than 3. It betrayed me and tried to kill me. So otherwise we would. Oh yeah, that, and my husband's a lot older, so we couldn't just keep popping them out,
Why not? There's a lot. Like, do you not see all the Hollywood people who are like
I am, but I'm not
75 and having kids with 20-year-olds?
When we had our first 2, because we had a boy and a girl, my husband was like, we're done, right? I'm like, yeah, we got a boy and a girl. And then my sister-in-law had my youngest nephew at the time. And I was like, oh, I don't think we're done because I want another one. And it took me months to convince my husband that, yes, he did want another one. There's a lot of crying involved there. And I remember him saying, I don't want to be one of those old dads. I want to retire early. I don't want to be one of those old dads. There's still times when we'll do things and people will be like, are you dad or are you grandpa? And that bothers him a lot. It's sad. When our youngest was in the hospital as a baby, he got that question almost every day from the doctors. And that was 13 years ago. Yeah, it bothers him.
That's weird. I don't see why people would ask that.
And it's one of those things I'm like, honey, we can't help it. That is the hand that we were dealt. We didn't meet until it would have been gross had we met if I was any younger. And it's just our love story, and it is what it is. We started having them the minute we could. So
I was adopted, and so my parents were older, and my dad was never asked that, but my mom, I would get that frequently with my mom.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I had
But my parents
opposite.
were older when they adopted me.
Yeah,
so.
I would get the opposite, where people would ask me if my mom was my sister, and it would tick me off.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of, I mean, you're pretty close in age to your mom.
Mm-hmm. They'd ask me if my grandma was my mom, and I'd be like, yeah, she is.
All right, my next book is Almost Like You by Crompton. This is one of the books in our Road to 1K giveaway, so you want to make sure that you've hit that subscribe button. Do it, people. So this is about Tessa. Tessa is fleeing a very abusive relationship, and we do see some of that on page, so you want to check triggers. I think if you have heroines fleeing, you probably want to check all your triggers if this could be a triggering area for you. So it's pretty horrific, and she is fleeing, and she ends up taking a job on Elliot's ranch. And so when she gets there, she's ready to start a new life. She's not super bitter. Like, she's just like ready for a new life. And she's very excited to be on a ranch where there's horses and things like that. So helping out is like, she's happy to be there. Elliot, not so happy to have her, but he needs the help on the ranch. And he is very closed off. He has some trauma, and he is punishing himself for things that have happened in the past, and he is unable to let go. So we have two people who have some pretty tragic pasts and some baggage and trauma, who find themselves kind of in a forced proximity situation because she's going to be living there in his home at the ranch. And she really wants to try and help Elliot, and Elliot really does not want to be helped because he wants to continue to punish himself and live in the past. And the line on the book, you'll never have what's in front of you until you let go of what's behind you, I think really just sums up the whole story. Is beautifully written. Highly recommend it. It might be my favorite out of the ones we did today.
Yeah, I realized that the other day. I was like, that is the only book of Karen's I don't have.
Well, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and maybe you'll win.
Well, maybe I'll win it when we hit 1,000.
Just kidding.
I won't, but you guys make sure you do that, because I can't win that. I'll just go get one from Karen, okay? When you come back to the States, or when we make it to Australia, that's what I'm doing. I'm just holding out for that one, so that I have something to get from her. Yeah. Okay, guys. So that is what we have for you for Heroines on the Run.
Make sure that you leave us a comment. Is this a trope you enjoy? How do you feel about this trope? Do you like it? Have you read good books in this trope? Tell us all the bookish things in those comments. Make sure you check back on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday for new videos from us.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.